It's important to appreciate the good old days when you're in them, and we are somewhat still there with From Software at the moment. They've been consistent for like 10 plus years. Ever since Dark Souls 1, they've been releasing games super regularly in comparison to most other game devs, and yet the quality remains quite high. We're now getting a DLC that I'd probably just call an expansion with Shadow of the Erdtree. It's meant to be like 60 plus hours. When do you get that from anyone else? Expansions are pretty much a dead concept in the industry. Instead, you've got, say, Starfield trying to charge you $7 for one quest. Shadow of the Erdtree, some might say it's expensive, but for 60 plus hours of potentially just more pretty decent Elden Ring content, I'd say it's good value. It's shaping up to be another decent release from Software. So I'm excited. I haven't consumed a lot of content or even really talked about this expansion in general because I just want to play and enjoy it. I don't want to spoil it for myself. I don't want to see what bosses there are, all the areas. I don't want to see too many screenshots. I'm just going to jump in, and I'm confident with this developer. I'm just going to have a good time, and I know deep down this won't last forever. One day, it might be, hopefully, long after Miyazaki has retired, but there will come a day where they release something that is From Software's version of Suicide Squad, their anthem or something like that, where we go, Jesus, this developer has fallen off, like BioWare, like Bethesda seem to, and I'm trying not to think about it. I hope it's long into the future, but it will happen. I mean, even being here on Steam, there'll be a time where Gabe steps down and some greedy corporation focusing on purely short-term profits manages to destroy PC gaming for everyone. That will sadly probably happen at some point. And because I know that we're in those good old days right now, I'm a little bit protective of the game companies that are doing good things. And when I see something nefarious, it does make me want to call it out. And what I'm referring to is when you get these reviewers, these game journalists, and it's not quite a hot take to suggest that game journalists are incompetent, they're hacks, they don't know what they're doing. But sometimes it gets worse than normal when, say, you get a review of Shadow of the Erdtree, and the reviewer gives it a 9 out of 10. And then you get another reviewer, they write pretty much word for word the exact same review, but then they just give it a 7 out of 10. There's no real justification, they didn't find more things wrong with it. They say it's good, but then they just go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10. And you just know they've purely done that to just generate maybe some clicks for their article. And I'm not saying you can't go against the consensus, and you can't say, all right, Shadow of the Erdtree, most people love it. I don't. I'm going to give it a lower score. If someone does that, and they provide decent reasons, not the old IGN, too much water, or Polygon in 2024, too many straight white males, I'm talking genuine reasons for why you might have criticisms for it. But it seems these reviewers, they can't really find any genuine critiques. They just want to give it that lower score, pretty much for attention and nothing else. Now, I personally don't care about Metacritic scores, but I know that those scores, they do filter through somewhat to the casual audience. They might not sort of be looking at the number, but they just hear about word of mouth for the game. And when you hear that a game is like the best reviewed one ever, it gets everyone excited, even people who wouldn't normally play these types of games. These people might buy them, it sells well, and then we get more of them. So for me, it's just wanting to ensure the best possible chance for a great game to sell well. We saw it with Baldur's Gate. We've seen it, of course, with the base game for Elden Ring. Brand new IP, it still does extremely well because of the dev's reputation and the quality of the game. It shows that great games will sell. So I want to call out some of these pathetic reviews that seem like they've purely been done for attention, not an objective look at the game. And if we look firstly at Alexis Ong, this is Eurogamer, basically another Polygon Kotaku-style outlet, and this reviewer, he used to work at Polygon as well, so you can see where this is going. Now, this person has given Shadow of the Erdtree a 3 out of 5. That's essentially a 6 out of 10. It's not exactly the same, given you're working with less numbers, but pretty much identical. So a 3 out of 5, and I'm not going to spoil the game for everyone by going through the review, but essentially summing up, he says, much of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, is more of the same grueling beauty. Therefore, 6 out of 10, essentially. Now, I try and look at the consistency. What other games are you giving sort of similar scores to? And one really caught my eye. Goodbye Volcano High. Part visual novel, part rhythm game, 5 out of 5. Now remember, this person used to work at Polygon, because this is going to be quite relevant in a second when we look at what Goodbye Volcano High is. It's a cinematic narrative adventure about love, change, the end of the world, and we've essentially got what looks like a furry game. If you don't know what that is, don't even look it up. But a furry game where if I look at the top reviews, I love my lesbian dino wife. So we can see here that Alexis, who gives Elden Ring a 3 out of 5, games where you can play as some sort of lesbian dinosaur creature, where you can have a relationship with what looks like a duck cross human. These generate a perfect score. Elden Ring, come on, you've got to do better. You've got to be like Goodbye Volcano High. It's in the LGBTQ plus section. That's what you need to do if you're going to get respect from the critics. If we look now to Alyssa Mercant, now that name might be familiar to you. You might remember her from when the Sweet Baby Inc. drama was initially blowing up, and she's just a poor victim. Everyone's bullying her, hating her, even though she was the one who was doxing a lot of people, contacting their real-life family members purely for criticizing Sweet Baby Inc. But no, she's apparently the victim. And the victimhood extends to Shadow of the Erdtree, because she wrote an article about it on Kotaku, of course. Of all the outlets, of course, they'd be the ones to hire her. And she says here in a tweet, "I didn't plan on writing about what's going on re-Gamergate 2.0 and the endless harassment when reviewing Shadow of the Erdtree, but walking through the same boss store for nearly 3 hours just to get repeatedly mollywopped felt a lot like logging on for work." And in her article, she said, "But that flickering firelight memory of beating that damn boss urges me forward, filling me with hope. This is going to be hard, but I can do this. I will carry that mantra long after I leave the realm of shadow. This is going to be hard, but I can do this." So she's essentially saying that putting herself in the shoes of her Elden Ring character, where she's fighting demons, monsters who are merciless and want to kill her, it's very similar to when she gets a nasty DM on Twitter or someone leaves a negative comment. And as someone rightly puts, it's a game review, not your therapy session. Someone else says, "Hey, can someone recommend me a game review who just plays the games, reviews them? I don't need anything more than that. I especially don't need to be their therapist." Well, unfortunately, Aaron, game reviewers, professional game reviewers, 99% of them wish they could be writing political articles for CNN or something. They don't really want to talk about games, but no one else will hire them. They use them as a vehicle, and that's where we've ended up. And I've got to say with Alyssa, sometimes I've read one of her posts, heard her in a video trying to provoke people into physically fighting her, and we can roll our eyes, everything like that, but when you really think about it, I think this Alyssa person, she loves the so-called Gamergaters. She lives for those who hate Sweet Baby Inc. because attention is all she really cares about. If everyone was on board with her worldview, she'd be so bored, she'd have nothing to talk about. And I mean, you look at a recent post from like 2 days ago. After 2 straight weeks of work, Mummy is taking a much-needed mini-vacation. See you later, never stopping. So she's had to work for 2 weeks. She needs a break. She needs a holiday. My goodness, she can't be writing that seriously. She knows what she's doing. Making people angry is literally what she lives for. And I better check, actually, that I'm using the correct pronouns. I am. Thank God, I can relax. But if we look now at another one, Kaku Chopuri, I've never heard of this one, but I came across them because they gave Elden Ring a 7 out of 10. Again, a bit of a lower score, and it'd be fine, once again, if they were actually getting down to genuine critiques, they'd found some problems with the DLC. Everyone should be able to voice your opinion, but it just reads as the same review as the 9s and 10s. It's the same review, they just give it that lower score, and maybe it is because it's a site I've never heard of. They wanted my attention and it worked, I've been sucked in. But if we look at some of their reviews, like their Elden Ring DLC one, the first thing that they say Elden Ring review throwing shade. So it just sounds like their intent from the start was to shit on the game. They didn't really go into this wanting to write an honest, objective review. They wanted to subvert expectations, do something different. And if we look at their final point so that we don't spoil anything, it says things in the cons like still brutally difficult and unfair at times, more so than the base game. That implies that they didn't like the base game either, and they're disappointed that it's more of the same. I couldn't actually find a review for the original. I'm not sure if they were around then or what's going on, but even saying that, it reminds me of the Alien Isolation review. If you remember that game, it was a pretty decent survival horror, and IGN reviewed it and gave it a 4 out of 10. And again, I don't really care that much about these reviewers, but that reviewer, he said he hated survival horror. He gave it that 4 out of 10. That filtered through to the casual audience, and the game didn't sell well. There was this perception that it was, it's middling, it's divisive. Some people like it, some people hate it because it was getting 9 out of 10s, and then there's a 4 out of 10 from someone who doesn't even like the genre. So the casual audience didn't buy it. It flopped, and now there's no more Alien survival horrors. We may never get one again. So when I see something like this, where the person obviously doesn't like this type of game, they talk about awkward controls and feel, which I think is kind of odd. Like, of all the action games I've played, the From Software ones are very responsive. They feel good. Sure, he mentions jank, there's a little bit of that, but it's fairly well polished given the length of the game and the amount of content. I just feel like the 7 out of 10, from what they said earlier about throwing shade, it sounds like attention-seeking. And even if you don't think so, if you think I'm just being biased because I like From Software, let's have a look at some of their other reviews. So, Tales of Kenzera. Now, if you're not aware of this one, you probably don't care about the game, but you may have heard that Sweet Baby Inc. consulted for it, consulted on the story, put their mark on it. Well, this game did not sell well. No one cared about it. I think it had like 150 Steam reviews the last time I checked, which is very, very low for any game. That suggests it had very low sales. And even the quality of the game, it's meant to be like a Metroidvania type of experience, but it had like 3 bosses in the entire game. You can beat it in 4 or 5 hours. The price point, I mean, I think it was like $30, $40 in my country, but they had to discount it. They put the price real low, which again reinforces that no one wants to play it. But if we look at the pros here for this Kenzera, this Sweet Baby Inc. game, an honest, heartfelt story. Very beginner-friendly. I'm not sure why that's a pro. What does that really mean? Combat is intuitive. Oh, but apparently Elden Ring's combat, it's janky and the controls suck, all of that. Let's be honest, if you read through this review, there's all this praise for the culture side of it, and oh, we're changing the world with this title, thank God for Sweet Baby Inc. This gets an 8 out of 10. So this same publication, Kenzera, is better than the Elden Ring DLC everyone's been waiting for. Again, if you genuinely think this, if you played both and just objectively you think it's the better game, fine. But when I read through your content, it really just suggests to me that politics are at play. Like, you think that it's your duty to give a Sweet Baby Inc. game, for instance, a higher score because this is going to re-educate people. We've got to get the message out there, so we'll give this high praise. Elden Ring DLC, we'll give it a middling review because it'll bring more people to the website because of the controversy. It goes on a lot, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. This has been going on for ages, but I think it's just a good reminder that game journalists, they shouldn't be trusted. I see people talking about the Metacritic score. Oh my god, it's the highest rated DLC ever. It's very cool, and I hope that means even more casual gamers get behind it and buy it, because sometimes a DLC kind of gets lost, where you get the people excited for the launch and they go out and buy it, but some of these people don't even know what a DLC really is. They're never going to buy it. So I hope that message gets out. So From Software, get decent sales if it is a decent release, which it's sounding like. So there's no point getting too upset because Shadow of the Erdtree didn't get a 97 or a 98 like Nintendo games get. I'm looking forward to playing Shadow of the Erdtree. I know that we're in the golden times of From Software. This may not last forever. Glad I haven't been spoiled. Once I play this, I can start to look forward to the true juggernauts that are coming later in the year, like Bloodlines 2 and Dragon Age the Veilguard. Let's see if they live up to Shadow of the Erdtree. I don't think they will. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.